name is Heather Binning, and I'm the counselor and movement therapist in the early childhood program at the Pennsylvania School for the Deaf. And today I will be talking to you about emotional literacy. So basically we're going to be talking about our feelings today. So before we jump into the topic for today, I just wanted to say that the information I'm presenting today is general information and it may not apply to everyone's family, their preferences. So I just wanted to present it as a whole and take away what you find helpful and leave what you feel like isn't a good fit. So first off, some questions we're going to answer today. What is emotional literacy? What does it look like? Why it's important, and what we can do to help. Okay, so what is emotional literacy? It's kind of the term of the day. So it's broken down into three parts. So first you're going to label your emotion, and then understand that emotion, and then respond appropriately. So a simple example would be if you're stressed, you can identify as stressed, and then know that when those moments of stress you don't do a great job communicating, so maybe you would need to take a minute for yourself. So that would be an example. So what does emotional literacy look like? I'm going to give you some examples of what it might look like in children. So younger children, a lot of times you'll see when they notice a friend is feeling sad, if they see tears, they may point to that child and sign or say sad. If you tell them that we're going to go outside and go to the park, they may get excited and sign happy or excited. Then a more advanced skill would be if a child has a toy that they want or a book that they want and they're mad, so then they're able to label themselves in a more complicated, a bigger emotion, and they might sign mad. And then you're going to move into the next phase, which would be responding appropriately. So taking a deep breath when you feel frustrated, if you know that you feel lonely, so then you set up plans with friends. So those are all examples of emotional literacy. So our next question is, what affects a child's emotional literacy? So there's three huge factors. So of course we're going to consider each child separately. They bring their own developmental skills, their own personality, their own temperament. We're also going to look at their day-to-day interactions with their family and what environmental supports they have. And then also every other person in their life. So other caregivers, neighbors, teachers, so everyone plays a role. So now we're going to talk about why it's important. Why am I talking about it with you right now? There's a lot of research on this topic. I pulled a lot of my information from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, their Early Head Start program. But there's a long list of reasons why emotional literacy is important. So it helps people tolerate frustration better. So you'll engage in less self-destructive behavior. You'll be less impulsive, so you'll think before you're acting. You'll be more focused, which of course links to better academic achievement. And it also helps us understand ourselves better and understand others, so you're able to form deeper relationships. So now that we've covered the background about what it is and why it's important, we're going to focus on what we can do. So there's three parts we'll go over. The first part of what we can do focuses on the adult behavior, so expressing our own feelings. No matter if you like it or not, children are observing everything we do and kind of absorbing it. So adults serve as models all the time. If you're aware of it or not, your children are learning from you. So using that to be models for emotional literacy. So an example is talking about your feelings as they're happening. So you could say, if you're rushing through the grocery store, you just need to pick up one item, there's a really long line. You could say, this line is really long, I'm really frustrated. And I can understand the hesitation to want to express those more negative emotions, but the truth is that we don't feel happy all the time, and that's okay. So children seeing the full spectrum of emotions will help them be able to label them in themselves better as they learn. So another thing we can do to support children's emotional literacy is labeling their feelings. So to do that well, you need to tune in to really understand how your child is feeling. Parents and caregivers are obviously the experts in this, teachers and school staff learn it as the school year goes along. But when you tune in, you're able to assign words and label as your child is feeling them in the moment. So an example would be, I notice your face is red. Maybe you're feeling a little angry. So then they can know, like, my body feels this way. Oh, there's a word for it when I'm feeling angry. Or you know the situation that happened right before, so you can understand maybe what their emotional response would be. One thing to keep in mind is to be mindful of emotion or of judgment, because we don't want our children to feel sad or angry, but we do want to teach them what those feelings mean. So if we do notice those feelings, labeling them neutrally, because we don't want them to hide those feelings. We want to acknowledge them. And then from doing all of that, it helps your child connect those emotions, those feelings, to actual language, which is the goal. And I did want to mention, we're talking about labeling emotions, and a lot of your children are using sign language. So, and I understand that learning sign language is a lifelong process for a lot of us. And labeling those feelings, you're going to want to know the signs for those words. So we will have a video after this of Veronica giving you, I think there's 20 emotions that she'll be giving you the signs for after this video. So be sure to stay tuned. So the last thing we're going to talk about is how you can include emotional literacy into your day-to-day routine. So in different stories that you read, in different games, just conversations, it'll become part of your routine, so it's something that your child will be learning not just one time, but almost every day. So there's different books, there's a ton of books that talk about emotional literacy that do a great job of explaining the range, the full spectrum of emotions. If your child engages in imaginary play, so they're playing with dolls or animals, sometimes they may act out different feelings with those animals, so you're able to label in that moment, like, ooh, the zebra looks excited, things like that. So making it a part of your routine will make it more part of the norm. So sometimes you can do like a morning check-in to see how they're feeling when they wake up. A lot of times you'll see that in preschool morning meeting. Everyone goes around and is able to label how they're feeling that day, so it's part of their routine. There's also different games you can do. You can try to match your child's facial expression. You can try to guess how they're feeling based on their facial expression. Just really simple things to include it in your day-to-day routine. So we just went over a lot of things regarding emotional literacy. I did want to end with some takeaways before we wrap up for today. So the first thing is that describing how we feel is hard. Even as adults, sometimes you get stuck on really labeling your own emotions. So for children, it's a new skill that they're building on every day. So that being said, it's something that we're always learning, always figuring out, even through adulthood. I'm sure you know someone that has a hard time expressing themselves all the time. So it's a lifelong skill. And then also, just a reminder that when talking about emotional literacy, we really want to emphasize that every emotion is valid. Of course, we want our children to feel happy and all those positive, good things, but sometimes they don't. And it's okay if we're labeling that so they're able to label their own feelings as they get older. And then lastly, emotional literacy is a foundational skill. So we talked about all the things that it affects. So their relationships, their academic performance, their behavior. So it's definitely something we want to work on as soon as possible so that we can see a lot of growth in other areas of their life. And then the 3 things that we talked about that adults can do is express their feelings, label their child's feelings, and then include emotional literacy in their day-to-day life. So thank you everyone for joining me in my talk about emotional literacy. I hope you were able to find some new information and some things that you can take away and use with your own children.